Have you ever noticed how the people who chase you the hardest are the ones you think about the least, and the ones who pull back, who hold something in reserve, who don't give you everything all at once? They're the ones who occupy your mind at 3 in the morning. There's something strange about this, something that contradicts everything we've been told about love and connection. We're taught that openness creates intimacy, that vulnerability builds bonds, that giving freely is the pathway to someone's heart. And yet, when you hand over everything immediately, your time, your attention, your emotions, your availability, something shifts, the dynamic changes, the energy reverses. Why is it that the moment you become completely available, completely transparent, completely yours, you become less interesting? You meet someone, there's chemistry, there's potential, and in your excitement, in your hope, in your genuine desire to connect, you open the floodgates. You text back immediately, you make yourself available whenever she wants to see you, you share your deepest thoughts after the second conversation, you rearrange your schedule, you prove your interest, you demonstrate your value, and somewhere in all of that giving, the mystery disappears. Here's the thing, value isn't just about what you have to offer, it's about how you offer it. It's about pacing. It's about creating space for desire to build. When you hand over your value too quickly, you're not actually being more generous or more loving. You're collapsing the tension that makes attraction possible. Think about the last time you wanted something badly. Maybe it was a job opportunity. Maybe it was acceptance into a program. Maybe it was approval from someone you admired. Did you want it more when it came easily or when you had to work for it? The psychology behind this runs deeper than simple game playing or manipulation. This is about fundamental human wiring, about how our brains assess value, about what triggers the reward centers that create lasting interest. So, what happens when you give too much, too soon? Let me paint you a picture. You're dating someone new. She texts you and within seconds you respond. She mentions she's free Friday and you immediately cancel your plans. She shares something personal and you match it with something even more vulnerable. You're thinking, I'm showing her I care, I'm proving I'm different, I'm demonstrating my interest. But here's what she's experiencing: confusion about your value, questions about why you're so available, uncertainty about whether you have a life outside of her. The truth is, people judge value by scarcity, not because they're shallow or manipulative, but because scarcity has been a reliable indicator of value for all of human history. When something is rare, it's valuable. When something is abundant and freely given, we subconsciously assume it has less worth. This is called the scarcity principle, and it operates below our conscious awareness. We can't turn it off just because we wish people valued us for who we are rather than how available we are. And this is where it gets complex, because you're not trying to manipulate. You genuinely like this person. You genuinely want to connect. Your availability is a reflection of your interest, not a lack of self-respect. But intention doesn't change impact. Here's something critical to understand. Your value as a person and your availability to someone are two completely different things. You can be incredibly valuable, interesting, accomplished, emotionally intelligent, kind, and still diminish the perception of that value by being too available. Think about the most interesting person you know. Chances are they're not constantly available. They have things going on. They have passions, commitments, a life that exists independently of their relationships. When you do connect with them, it feels special, it feels earned. Their attention carries weight because it's not given indiscriminately. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about actually being someone whose time and energy have value because you've invested them in your own life first. When you hand over your value too quickly, you're essentially saying, I have nothing else important going on. You are my priority. I'll reorganize everything for you. And while that might seem romantic, it creates an imbalance. It puts her in the position of being your source of validation and meaning. It makes your value contingent on her acceptance. That's not attractive, it's pressure. There's a well-documented phenomenon in psychology called the IKEA effect. People value things more when they've put effort into them. A bookshelf you assembled yourself feels more valuable than an identical one that came pre-made. The same principle applies to relationships. When someone has to invest effort, time, and emotional energy to win you over, they become more invested in the outcome. Their brain justifies the effort by elevating your value. But when everything is handed to them, when there's no chase, no pursuit, no sense that they need to earn your attention, there's no investment. And without investment, there's no deep valuation. This is why the person who texts you constantly, who's always free, who never pushes back or creates any friction, often becomes wallpaper, background, comfortable but not exciting. The tragedy is that these are often the kindest, most genuine people. They're not playing games, they're just giving in the way they wish others would give to them. But here's the truth. Love and attraction don't operate on fairness, they operate on dynamics. on tension and release, on presence and absence. Let's be clear about what we're talking about here, because this can easily be misunderstood as manipulation or game playing. Making her work for it doesn't mean being deliberately cold or distant, playing mind games, or creating false scarcity, withholding affection as punishment, testing her constantly to prove her interest. What it actually means is this: maintaining your own life, your own standards, your own boundaries, while allowing her to demonstrate her interest through effort. It means not dropping everything the moment she reaches out. Not because you're trying to make her jealous, but because you genuinely have things that matter to you. It means not revealing everything about yourself in the first 3 conversations. Not because you're hiding, but because depth takes time to unfold. It means allowing space between interactions, not to create anxiety, but to create anticipation, to let her wonder about you, to let her imagination fill in the gaps. Silence is not emptiness, it's control, it's confidence. It's the understanding that your value doesn't need constant reinforcement. When you pull back slightly, when you create breathing room, you're not being withholding, you're being self-respecting. You're communicating that your attention is valuable because you value it. And here's what's really happening in those moments of space. She's getting the chance to miss you, to wonder about you, to invest her own emotional energy in thinking about you. That's not cruelty. That's creating the conditions for genuine interest to develop. Let's talk about what you're actually sacrificing when you hand over your value too quickly. First, you're sacrificing mystery, and mystery is one of the most powerful elements of attraction. When someone can predict your every move, when they know exactly how you'll respond, when there are no surprises left, boredom sets in. Mystery doesn't mean being fake or playing a character. It means unfolding gradually, revealing layers over time, keeping some things to yourself, not because you're hiding, but because intimacy is built in stages. Second, you're sacrificing respect. When you consistently prioritize someone else's needs over your own boundaries, you train them to devalue your time and energy. This isn't conscious on their part, but people learn how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself. If you're always available, they learn your time is infinite. If you're always accommodating, they learn your boundaries are flexible. If you always respond immediately, they learn your attention is guaranteed. Third, you're sacrificing your own growth. When you reorganize your entire life around someone you've just met, you stop investing in yourself. Your hobbies fade, your friendships weaken, your personal goals take a back seat. And ironically, as you become less interesting to yourself, you become less interesting to her. The most attractive version of you is the one who's living, who's engaged with life, who has passions and pursuits that exist independently of romantic validation. Here's what decades of relationship research tells us. Lasting attraction is built on a foundation of respect, mystery, and mutual investment. Respect comes from boundaries, from having standards, from being willing to walk away if your needs aren't being met. Mystery comes from revealing yourself gradually, from maintaining your own life and interests, from not being completely predictable. And mutual investment, that comes from both people putting in effort, from both people pursuing, from both people demonstrating through actions that they value the connection. When you hand over everything immediately, you eliminate all 3 of these elements. There's no respect because there are no boundaries to respect. There's no mystery because everything is revealed. There's no mutual investment because only one person is doing the work. But here's what's fascinating. When you pull back, when you maintain some mystery, when you require effort, you create the conditions for deeper connection. Because the person who has to work for your attention is the person who will value it. The person who has to wait for your time is the person who will appreciate it. The person who has to earn your vulnerability is the person who will protect it. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like the opposite of vulnerability, the opposite of authenticity, the opposite of everything we're told creates real connection. And this is where it gets nuanced. True intimacy does require vulnerability. It does require openness. It does require showing up fully. But timing matters. There's a difference between being genuinely vulnerable with someone who's earned your trust and trauma dumping on a second date. There's a difference between being available to someone who's consistently shown up for you and being available to someone who's still deciding if they're interested. The balance is this: be authentic, but be boundaried. Be open, but be selective. Be available, but be valuable. Think of it like this: a treasure chest that's always open isn't a treasure. It's just stuff. But a treasure chest that opens only for those who've proven themselves worthy, that's actually valuable. Your emotional intimacy, your time, your availability, these are treasures, and they should be given to people who've demonstrated they'll value them. Let me offer you some signs that you're handing over your value too quickly. You text back immediately, every time, even when you're in the middle of something important. You drop your plans the moment she expresses interest in hanging out. You share deep personal information before she shared anything vulnerable with you. You're more invested in the relationship than she is, consistently putting in more effort. You feel anxious when you don't hear from her, but she seems perfectly content with gaps in communication. You find yourself trying to prove your worth rather than allowing her to discover it naturally. Here's the thing about these patterns. They don't come from bad intentions. They come from fear. Fear that if you don't prove your interest immediately, she'll lose interest. Fear that if you're not constantly available, she'll find someone who is. Fear that if you don't give everything, you'll be seen as withholding. But that fear is creating the exact outcome you're trying to avoid. Because when you operate from fear, you give away your power, you make yourself smaller, you communicate that your value is questionable, that it needs constant reinforcement. The transformation happens when you stop trying to prove your value and start simply being valuable. This means living a life you're genuinely excited about, pursuing goals that matter to you, maintaining friendships and hobbies, having standards for how you want to be treated. When your life is full, not performatively full, but genuinely rich, you stop needing her approval to feel valuable. You stop needing her attention to feel secure. And paradoxically, that's when you become most attractive, because she can sense the difference between someone who's trying to impress her and someone who's simply living well, between someone who needs her validation and someone who would enjoy her company. This isn't about faking indifference. It's about genuinely having a life worth living. It's about being the kind of person you would want to date. When you pull back slightly, when you create space, when you require effort, you're not playing a game. You're respecting yourself enough to only give your full attention to someone who's demonstrating they want it. It means if she asks to hang out, but you have plans with friends, you don't cancel. You suggest another time, because your friendships matter. It means if she's only reaching out late at night for attention, you set a boundary. Because your time and emotional energy aren't unlimited resources, it means you share things about yourself gradually, allowing her to ask questions, to wonder, to pursue getting to know you. It means you maintain some mystery about your life, not through secrecy, but through selectivity. She doesn't need to know every detail of your day. She doesn't need constant access to your thoughts. And here's what's powerful about this approach. It's not a technique, it's a lifestyle. It's the natural outcome of respecting yourself and your time. When you live this way, you're not thinking about how to make her chase you. You're simply living your life and allowing her to fit into it appropriately, rather than rearranging everything to accommodate her. I know the resistance that comes up. I know the voice that says, but if I pull back, won't she think I'm not interested? Won't she find someone who will give her the attention I'm withholding? Let me be direct with you. If someone loses interest because you have boundaries, because you have a life, because you don't drop everything for them, they weren't the right person anyway. You don't want someone who only values you when you're chasing them. You don't want someone who needs you to be constantly available to maintain interest. You want someone who respects your boundaries, who values your time because they see you value it, who's intrigued by the fact that you have a full life. The right person won't be turned off by your self-respect. They'll be attracted to it. They'll recognize that you're someone who knows your worth. And if someone walks away because you won't be available 24/7, because you won't sacrifice your entire life for them, because you expect mutual effort, let them walk. That's not loss, that's clarity. Here's what happens over time when you consistently hand over your value too quickly. You train yourself to be smaller, to need less, to expect less. You get into a pattern where you're always the one pursuing, always the one investing more, always the one afraid to ask for what you need because you might lose them. That's not love, that's anxiety. Real love, healthy love, balanced love. It's characterized by mutual pursuit, by both people showing up, by both people valuing what the other brings. When you require effort, when you maintain your value, when you refuse to hand over everything immediately, you're selecting for partners who are capable of that kind of balanced love. You're filtering out the people who want an easy option, who want someone they don't have to work for, who want to be the center of someone's universe without reciprocating. But here's the deepest truth, the one that underlies all of this. The way you treat yourself teaches other people how to treat you. When you drop everything for someone, you're teaching them your time isn't valuable. When you share everything immediately, you're teaching them you have poor boundaries. When you chase constantly, you're teaching them they don't need to pursue you. This isn't punishment, it's information. People learn who you are by watching how you behave. If you want to be valued, you have to value yourself first. If you want to be pursued, you have to be worth pursuing. If you want respect, you have to respect your own boundaries. Making her work for it isn't about game playing, it's about self-respect. It's about understanding that your time, your attention, your vulnerability, these are gifts, not entitlements. So where does this leave you? Start by examining your own life. Are you genuinely invested in it? Do you have hobbies, friendships, goals that excite you? Or have you been waiting for someone else to make your life interesting? Build a life worth protecting, create standards worth maintaining, develop interests worth your time. Then, when you meet someone, invite them into that life rather than abandoning it for them. Be available but not instantly. Be open but gradually. Be interested but not desperate. Notice when you're giving too much. Notice when you're accommodating beyond what feels comfortable. Notice when you're trying to prove rather than simply being. And pull back, not dramatically, not as punishment, but naturally as a person who respects their own time and energy. Watch what happens. Watch how the dynamic shifts. Watch how effort creates investment. Watch how space creates desire. You might lose some people in this process. The ones who only wanted easy access. The ones who wanted someone to orbit around them. Let them go. Because what you'll gain is so much more valuable. Self-respect. Boundaries, partners who actually value what you bring, relationships based on mutual pursuit rather than one-sided chasing. Here's what I want you to understand. You are not being cold by having standards. You are not being manipulative by maintaining boundaries. You are not being cruel by requiring effort. You are being self-respecting. You are being wise. You are being someone who understands that value isn't proven through desperation. The people worth having in your life will rise to meet you. They'll put in effort. They'll demonstrate interest. They'll value what you bring because you've required them to work for it. And the ones who don't, they were never going to value you anyway, no matter how much you gave. So stop handing over your value too quickly. Stop proving and start being. Stop chasing and start living. Make her work for it. Not because you're playing games, but because you're worth the effort. Your time is valuable. Your attention is precious. Your vulnerability is a gift. Treat them that way and require others to do the same. That's not strategy. That's self-love. And self-love, that's the most attractive thing you can offer.